Hello, 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 hello to those of you out there watching this. This is Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson, and I want to welcome you guys here. I was on just a little while ago having the conversation about DMX controversy, and I figured, okay, well, you know what? Let's split this up and do this the right way because I feel like, accountability conversations need to be had separately, especially when they are painting very, very distinctive narratives. So I don't come for just accountability of Black people. That's the one thing. But in this conversation, we're going to talk about accountability of American justice system or the American judicial system, right? And legislative, maybe. Okay. So I think that everybody knows. And if you don't know, then let's go ahead and have further conversation about it so I can make sure you guys are aware that at the time that crimes are committed, right? If the law is not in place at the time a crime is committed, a person cannot be prosecuted for violating a law, right? And I'm sure many people knew that. I'm just gonna say you guys did. Why? Because you guys are awesome. And we talk about accountability here. And you guys sometimes bring me receipts, facts, and things that relate to the content that we talk about and the people that we talk about. And I feel like all of that is important. So I'm Dr. Jefferson, and I'm the host of Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson, where accountability is key. That's what our channel, that's what this platform is about. And that's what it means for us to be in a positive place. All right. So, I was getting, you know, my snack for the day. But so that is what we talk about, accountability here. So I know that you guys have seen the press release and all that good stuff about Derek Chauvin's sentencing happening today. Today is the day, officially 4:14 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It's 4:46 now. We can truly say that justice has been served in this particular case. I'm not quite sure how satisfied most people are with the verdict and sentencing component when it comes to how long of a time that he was sentenced, but I'm not sure how old he is. I think he'll either be dead or is too old, you know, once he gets out. So ex-police officer Derek Chauvin gets 22 and a half years in prison for Floyd's murder. Floyd is a Black man who was murdered in the streets on live cameras, multiple live cameras, because people were videotaping the atrocities that were happening in the middle of the street at the hands of a police officer, Derek Chauvin. Shout out to all of those people who had the guts to sit there and videotape it, although I'm sure they never anticipated it would end in the way that it did. I hope that their spiritual energy comes to a place of peace one day, because I know that for me it's still very triggering. It's a very traumatic experience to watch something like that happen to a person who has no way of defending themselves. And to see something like that happen at the hands of a police officer. So I feel like the judicial system has definitely held up their end of accountability. So I'm here now to question the Black community, about how we are going to respond. What does this mean for us? Does this negate the common thing that we say that the system isn't made for us, wasn't made for us, laws weren't made for us, and as a result of those laws not being made for us, we don't benefit from those laws, they're against us, the Black man is a target by the American judicial system. All of these things that I've heard, and you guys can definitely come with more because I'm sure you got some out there that I've not mentioned. But from reading this article, former Minneapolis police officer Derek Chauvin was sentenced Friday to 22 years and 6 months in prison for murdering George Floyd, the videotaped killing that triggered the most profound racial upheaval in the United States since the civil rights era. I agree. The punishment ended up putting an end to a chapter of a reckoning that spread from questions of official force to a broad reappraisal of discrimination inherent in American institutions. More than a year after the killing, matters of race have been taken center stage as a nation emerges from protest and the pandemic. A jury in April convicted Chauvin in the death of Floyd, a 46-year-old black man and father. On May 25th, 2020, Chauvin knelt on Floyd's neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds after detaining him on suspicion of passing a counterfeit bill. Floyd begged for mercy as his air supply dwindled. Images of the incident, which follows years of high-profile police killings of black men and women, spread swiftly across the internet and television screens. Ultimately, they led to the rare conviction of police officers for excessive force. Under Minnesota law, Chauvin faced up to 4 decades in prison. The prosecution team had requested that he receive 30 years behind bars in a June 2nd memo. So, if the prosecution requested 30 years and we got 22 and a half, right? Do we feel like justice has been rendered in this particular case? I want to know if that's where you guys are on this, or do you guys still feel like justice has not been rendered in this case? Hey, Anti-Afro, how you doing, William? And what's going on, Mario? It's so difficult to sit with. This article comes from the Bloomberg, and they go on to talk about the family's agony. And Chauvin offered condolences to the family of his victim during a hearing, the first time he spoke during his trial, but said little more because of the pending legal issues. During the sentencing, both families were allowed to speak of their particular grief. Philanese Floyd, the victim's brother, said the crime repeats itself without cease. Every day I have begged for justice to be served, reliving the execution of George, he said. I haven't had a real night's sleep because of the nightmares of hearing my brother beg for his life over and over again. Now, that part right there, that's the trauma that I was talking about earlier. People who recorded this experienced a significant degree of first-hand trauma by being in that very, very high intensity environment. You understand, where you've got a cop breaking the law, right? And you have police officers backing him up, people. That was the hardest thing for me. Mario, I think that this is life for him, to be honest with you. And there are a lot of things I feel about that, especially since we're Black people and we say that we're the vast majority of the population in prisons. So I have a lot that I feel. I do feel like apologies, like I talked about the other day, are sometimes not necessary because they don't heal the wounds that you've opened, because apologies are for you. When you come to a place where you forgive yourself for doing a particular thing, you apologize. It means nothing to that other person. Whether they accept it or not means nothing to the course of your journey either, because you've either forgiven yourself or you're not, right? But to be a person who was not able to be there to help out your family member, and to have seen this play out time and time and time again on computers, on your phone screens, television, on the media, I think that we've done an injustice to this family. That's what I was talking about that video where I think I recorded that video and that session about 2, 3 days ago when the young man was naked on top of his house. And you had a group of Black people who are a part of the neighborhood recording him. You don't understand the trauma that you contribute to when you do the things you do. Um, I almost could understand the reason for feeling like you need to pull your phone out and record events. But when you can see that the police station, that they're responding with a team, and that those efforts that they're using to respond are appropriate for the magnitude of the issue, right? I think that you guys should take in consideration the fact that eventually one day that person, their family members and things like that, one day they will return to a better level of functioning. Maybe they have kids, the fact that you have kids. Maybe those people would want their privacy protected, and you have this entire person and their entire leaving this earth, or their entire psychotic episode, or whatever it is, exposed out here on the internet, and the internet is forever. So I think that we need to be more mindful of what we do and how we move. You said if race is front and center, especially with the police, I advocate for lower sentences. This due to the fact when a Black officer comes up, he or she will receive a harsher sentence. You think so? Personally, I don't believe that race was a factor. I'm not sure how much research you guys have done into Derek and his past interactions with citizens that had substance use issues, whether they were Black, white, or other. But that's what I noticed from doing some very in-depth research on complaints filed against him. So I know that Black people feel a need to make this a black and white thing, but it just isn't. And I'm sorry. I just, I'm an accountability person. I only go off of the facts. This guy had an issue with his own personal mental health instability, and the way that he responded to the community around him. His biases or his prejudices were against people with substance use issues. That's a common issue with police officers, but it's not justified. So you don't treat people lesser than and do people a bad way just because they're intoxicated. Um, so it's just so many levels to that. So many levels to that. But it is what it is. So what did Malcolm X say? If you have a knife 9 inches in my back and you take it out 2 inches, it's still there. This is what I feel about Derek Chauvin sentencing today. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know, because here's the thing. I don't believe I'm a heavy person when it comes to the death penalty. And very long-term prison sentences, because what I see is a little bit of a bigger picture. So you're going to go to jail, and then now we, the people, the citizens of America who pay taxes, are paying for the rest of your life and your livelihood, your health and your wellness, your stability. You're getting free health care, food. You might not necessarily get to pick what you want to eat that day per se. You might not be going out to a fancy restaurant, but you are getting 100% citizens provided life, literally. When you got people out here on these streets that can't even get government assistance because they make too much and they're still within the poverty guidelines. So I don't know. I feel a lot of ways about a life sentence. I feel like he should be one of those people who is allowed to get out when he is in his older ages, elder years, or whatever. And that when he gets out, life will be harder as a result of him making a decision to take a life unjustly while he had his freedom. Maybe being locked up with some of the people that are supposed to be there, some of the people that are not supposed to be there, will rehabilitate him. Who knows? I don't know. But it's a couple of ways that I feel about that. Yeah. So I don't know about the life sentence. I don't necessarily agree with that one. I feel like death penalty would be a much too easy out. Um, but the reality is, Derek Chauvin did not only murder George Floyd. I think that you guys should really look at the bigger picture. And for those of you who haven't done your research, I think you really should do that. So for those families that never got justice, for those families that never got payouts from the police department and the government as a result of losing their family members who died in his custody, for those families, my heart definitely goes out to you. And I really hope that you guys get answers one day. And I hope that you guys get the justice for your family members who are also dead, because I feel like not only our judicial system, in and of itself, but also our society is easily swayed, manipulated, and blindsided. We have blinders on to everything that we just have a problem with accepting. Some people do some really screwed up things, and it has to do with those people, and it has to do with other factors other than racism in America. Um, Police brutality is a real thing. It's a real thing. And I think that we as a country need to do better when it comes to holding our police officers accountable. I think they need better training to respond to mental health and substance abuse crises. There are so many things, but I also think that our public needs reconditioning to responding and respecting police officers who are out there diligently working these streets and doing their jobs and protecting for very minimal income. Um, there is just so much there, so much there. But it is what it is. I totally agree. I totally agree. If you guys go back and you watch the show that I did on Nathaniel Woods, that sits and cuts deep with me, because uh, I personally advocated protests and did a lot towards him. And the state of Alabama executed him, and he never killed anyone. He was just there. And so seeing Derek Chauvin in comparison, you totally executed a man in the streets. This person was there as marshals and state police officers were murdered the same place he was in, and he was the informant. It's just so crazy. These things are just so crazy to me. And you executed him. That there was no state order. Their governor is something. She is definitely something. But we had to sit with that. And here it is. It was 2 months later that we had to watch George Floyd lose his life. So we saw 2 executions within 2 months here in America. It's just crazy. Our system is crazy. And it's just so much. It's just so much. So continue to share your thoughts. Continue to share your reflections on this issue. I got to jump out because I'm running late for a session. But this is a lot, people. How are you guys feeling now that this has come down? I am personally patiently waiting because I want to see every police officer that was there be held accountable and sentenced equally, because I think they're all equally responsible for the murder of George Floyd, especially since I've seen a state execute a man for being there when officers were executed in a drug standoff. People with mental health issues can murder people. While not as likely, they can be dangerous, especially on drugs. They can definitely be dangerous. However, I feel like better training for the police officers who are approaching people with mental health crises can definitely help to alleviate some of the outcomes that have been happening recently. They executed Nathaniel Woods in March of last year because he was at the scenes when they did a drug bust in a drug house, and he was sitting on the couch minding his own business using drugs, and the bullets went flying over his head. One of the police officers that actually was hit that died, Nathan was the one to pull him out of the fire, the line of fire. So it was a lot of things, just a lot of things. But so I would say look that up. It's a Alabama case. And so there were a lot of signatures and a lot of protests around Kay Ivey ordering a stay. Never got done. And he died. He was convicted. Yeah. And he never did anything in that situation but get high. That's it. So it's a lot of things that's really interesting to me. And they dragged him in for conspiracy of murder and blah, blah, blah. But, it's a lot of things that's really interesting about the sentencing process and different judges having different perspectives and the way that they render their verdicts, and then also sentencing in these cases. So it is what it is. Continue to share. Make sure you guys are increasing my followers by sharing this content with your friends and stuff. Don't be stingy out there in these streets. So be good to one another, make good choices, and impact the world today in a different way than you did yesterday. I look forward to seeing you guys back here at 8 so we can have the discussion about the next set of personality disorders. All right, later days.
A life can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames that whip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bunny. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.